I want to tell you to divorce your husband. But as a doctor, I'm not in a position to say such a thing. It'd be a huge problem if I did.
What do you mean?
There's no one else here. So, this is just me talking to myself. I'm so focused on this inventory reasoning that even if someone was here, I might not notice, so I need to be careful. When I went to the hospital to hear about my stepson's test results, the doctor took me aside and started muttering to himself, pretending to ignore me and saying it was just a monologue. At first, I didn't understand why the doctor was doing this, but as I listened, I began to grasp his intent. It was beyond anything I had imagined.
So, you're saying I have no choice but to talk directly to my husband and persuade him to stop?
It's a delicate situation. It might be best to separate the father and the child. So, I think divorcing and the mother taking the child would be best. It seemed like the doctor and I were having a conversation, but it was just us making monologues. If you ask me if this way of communicating is entirely without issues, I wouldn't say so. The doctor is really skirting a gray area here. After hearing everything and understanding the situation, I showed my gratitude towards the doctor's back and quietly left the room. After being married for 7 years, my husband has been up to no good all this time. According to the doctor, it's necessary to separate my husband and son soon. I need to start planning for a divorce quickly. My name is Mia. I'm 33 and work in an office. My husband, Noah, is 2 years older than me and works in a restaurant. We got married 2 years ago, and I haven't had a child of my own yet. Given my age, I really should be seriously thinking about having children soon. However, both my husband and I think maybe we're fine without more kids. It's not that we don't want children. We already have a 5-year-old son, Benjamin. I will leave Benjamin to you. No worries. Hey, Benjamin, aren't you going to say have a nice day to your mom?
Have a good day at work.
My son scatters toast crumbs on the table as he waves me off, and my husband diligently wipes them up with a cloth. I always leave for work feeling warm inside after seeing this scene. The reason we have a 5-year-old son after only 2 years of marriage is that my husband had a previous marriage, making the boy my stepson. He knows I'm not his biological mother. But we act like a real family, so the fact that I'm not his biological parent has never been an issue. There's no problem with how we're raising him. My husband, who has later work hours, takes our son to kindergarten in the morning, and I pick him up after work in the evening. Although my husband works on weekends, I'm off, so there's never a time when our son is home alone. Thanks to my husband's cooperation, childcare has been smooth. Yet, there's just one thing I personally find a bit troubling. Benjamin, whose cooking do you like more, mine or Dad's?
Dad's.
My son's immediate response with a big smile almost gave me what felt like a mortal wound mentally, and I thought I was going to spit blood. Since Noah has weekdays off, there are several days a week when he cooks instead of me, who is at work. I know there's no need to compare, and I understand I'll feel defeated, but I can't help asking Benjamin about my cooking versus Noah's. I know Benjamin means no harm, and since Noah works in a restaurant, it's understandable that I'd lose in cooking skills. Still, as a mother, my pride doesn't allow me to be outdone in cooking by the father, which is old-fashioned to think that way. Well, cooking is my personal issue and doesn't really matter, but there's another issue concerning Benjamin that I need to pay a bit more attention to.
Again? Is he okay?
Yeah, it's just the usual thing. I've already taken him to the hospital and just got back home.
He's had a sensitive stomach for a while, but there's no serious illness behind it, right? It won't get worse over time, will it?
Of course not. It's always the same with him getting diarrhea, and the doctors always say it's just diarrhea. When I'm at work, I sometimes get calls from Noah, who has the day off. It's usually about Benjamin feeling unwell. Today, before going to kindergarten, Benjamin complained of a stomach ache, so Noah took him to the hospital and let him skip kindergarten for the day. Benjamin has a weak stomach and occasionally suffers from diarrhea. However, it's not due to any serious illness, and it happens only once every few months, sometimes with a gap of about half a year. Noah isn't overly worried and reports the situation like it's a business report, laughing off my excessive concerns. Even if it's just mild diarrhea, shouldn't he be worried about Benjamin? I've thought about this, but I never say it out loud. It seems Noah does think about Benjamin in his own way. Noah has wondered if there's a doctor who can stop Benjamin's regular bouts of diarrhea, moving from one hospital to another, exhausting the options in our area. But wherever we go, the diagnosis is always just diarrhea, and doctors have said that as Benjamin grows and his body strengthens, he might stop having diarrhea. That's why we've settled with our current hospital. Perhaps that's why Noah doesn't worry too much about Benjamin. 5 years later, Benjamin turned 10. Just as Noah said, Benjamin occasionally has stomach issues, but he's never developed a serious illness and has grown up healthy and strong.
I'm home. I want lunch.
Don't rush me like that. You just got back, didn't you?
I've got plans to meet up right after lunch. Hurry up, I'm gonna be late.
All right. One Sunday, Benjamin came home just for lunch after being out all morning. He seemed in a hurry to finish lunch and leave again, pressuring me like a food fighter on the brink of a time limit at the dining table.
Thanks. I'm going.
After quickly wolfing down the pasta I made, Benjamin threw his fork down on the plate and dashed out of the house. Watching my overly energetic son, I realized I was worrying unnecessarily. However, I couldn't help feeling regret and reflection for not considering it unnatural for my too energetic son to have regular stomach troubles. One day, during work, I got a call from Noah. Expecting the usual news because it came during work, this time felt different. It seems this bout of diarrhea is pretty bad. He's really in pain.
What? Is he okay? Did they find some serious illness?
No, it's not that bad. Usually, his stomach calms down in a day, but this time, we were just told we need to watch it for a few days. You're always worrying too much.
But it's worse than usual, right?
Even if it's worse, it's still just diarrhea. The doctor said it's probably because it got cold in winter and his body got weakened. I got laughed at by Noah again just for worrying about Benjamin. Even though Benjamin's symptoms are worse than usual, doesn't Noah worry? But today, Noah took time off work to take Benjamin to the hospital and then stayed home, so it's not like he's not worried at all. In fact, I should be grateful for how he handled it. And as Noah heard from the doctor, Benjamin's condition improved in 2 days. My worry seemed unnecessary again. However, 3 months later, Benjamin's stomach problems came back. It's nighttime, but he seems to be in pain, so I'm gonna take him to the hospital. Night and weekends are always my responsibility, remember? You rely on me during the weekdays, so let me handle times like this. Today is a weekday, and Noah has the day off. When Noah cooks dinner, it's a rule between us that I do the dishes. After dinner, when I started doing the dishes, Benjamin started complaining about his stomach. This time, it seems a bit tougher than the last. I put Benjamin, who was walking hunched over like an old man because of his stomach pain, into the car and hurried to the hospital. But rushing there, I was told the usual by the doctor. It's diarrhea. I can prescribe the usual medication for you. I also frequently take Benjamin to the hospital, but I'm always told the same thing. Noah, who takes Benjamin to the hospital more often than I do, must be tired of hearing it. It's understandable that Noah laughs off my worries about Benjamin. However, this time, the doctor said something different. There's something concerning, so how about we do a more detailed examination today?
What?
Hearing about the examination made my anxiety inflate like a balloon. Could Benjamin have some serious illness? That's what we're trying to find out with the examination. I couldn't refuse the doctor's suggestion for an examination. Benjamin ended up undergoing several tests, including blood and urine tests. It got late today. Did something happen? Well, they did more detailed examinations than usual. What did the results say? They said we'd get the results later. I'll go hear them. I'll go too. If Noah goes, you're just gonna say it turned out to be nothing serious again. Don't trust me, huh? Well, even after the examination, they're probably just gonna say it's the usual diarrhea. Maybe it's just a way for the doctor to make money? That's why I want to hear the examination results myself. Tired from worry and anxiety, I decided to take a shower and go to bed early. However, because of my swelling worries, I ended up falling asleep later than usual. A few days later, I received a call from the hospital saying the test results were ready, so I took the day off work and went to the hospital alone. After checking in, I was waiting in the waiting room when the doctor came over to me even though it wasn't my turn yet. "Could you come with me for a moment?" "Oh, yes." Being called out by the doctor like this. My anxiety has ballooned to the point of bursting. Silently, we walked down the hospital corridor, not to the usual examination room but to a room that looked more like a supply closet. I braced myself, biting down hard on my back teeth, prepared not to faint even if I was given a terrible diagnosis. "You should divorce your husband."
What do you mean?
Expecting the doctor to talk about my son's illness, his words were so out of left field that I must have looked like a cat blasted into space. I asked for clarification, but the doctor didn't answer my question. However, he continued to speak. I began to understand the meaning behind his attitude and words. I see. That might indeed be a reason to consider divorce immediately. But preparations would be necessary. Without getting any answers to my questions, I bowed in gratitude towards the doctor's back and quietly left the supply room. That night, Noah asked me about Benjamin's test results.
You went to hear about Benjamin's results today, right?
How were they?
Nothing was wrong, they said.
I told you, didn't I?
That nothing would come up from the tests.
I lied as easily as exhaling. Noah seemed to believe my words, which means I could proceed with the divorce preparations. I bought a surveillance camera used for nursing or childcare and installed it on top of the kitchen cabinet. The top of the cabinet had empty boxes of kitchen appliances, so I hid the camera among them. It might be considered an invasion of privacy, but as long as it's within my household filming my family, it's not fundamentally illegal. If having cameras inside was illegal, you couldn't even install security cameras in your home. Although filming without the person's knowledge could invade privacy even within a family. If there's a justified and necessary reason, such as gathering evidence of infidelity or domestic violence, it seems it won't be a problem. This case should also be recognized as valid evidence without issues. If Noah were to make a fuss about privacy invasion, that would be a different problem, but it wouldn't affect my objectives. I managed to install the camera without Noah noticing, but that wasn't the end of it.
Hurry up and finish eating. The dishes won't clean themselves.
Don't rush me like that. You've been pretty impatient lately.
I just want to clean up quickly and relax.
Whether I cooked dinner or Noah did, cleaning the dishes was my job. I moved the dishes for all three of us to the sink and secretly collected remnants of soup and sauce left at the bottom of Benjamin's bowl, hiding them deep in the freezer. Later, I would save leftovers from Benjamin's meals again, hiding them in the freezer and disposing of the previously collected leftovers, as they were no longer needed. This seemingly pointless activity, I persisted with it, wondering if it was normal or not, until the day I drew the line. Benjamin is going to have to endure pain again, but I'm asking him to bear it just one more time. 2 months after setting up the camera and starting to collect Benjamin's leftover food, the day finally arrived. I took Benjamin to the hospital, feeling sorry for him, and decided to confront Noah directly to ensure Benjamin wouldn't have to suffer anymore. A few days later, after getting everything ready, I told Benjamin to stay in his room and waited for Noah to come home.
I'm home.
Huh? What's going on?
Just sit down.
Noah entered the living room and slowly sat on the couch as if he were approaching a dog about to lose its teeth, growling softly. My serious expression and the various documents laid out on the table made him wary. But it was too late for him to be cautious now.
You've been putting laxatives in Benjamin's food, haven't you?
Huh? What are you talking about? Noah's gaze shifted suddenly to the upper left corner of the room, away from the table, upon hearing my words. He must know that pretending ignorance is futile, as all the evidence is already in place. Still, he blatantly pretended not to understand. Probably, he couldn't believe his actions were uncovered. Or maybe he was buying time to think of an excuse. Either way, it's not good to give Noah time to think now. I continued talking without giving him much space to breathe.
I've got footage of you adding laxatives while cooking, and the laxative-laced soup is saved in the freezer.
You used a camera?
But even if what you say is true and I did put laxatives in Benjamin's food, a camera can't prove it's actually laxatives, right?
And even if you save the soup with laxatives, how can you prove it's laced? Are you going to report it to the police?
The police don't just act on such claims easily, you know?
Are you going to walk into a police station and say, "This is soup with laxatives"?
They'll think you're crazy and that's the end of it. Even if the police do take action, it'll probably just be a warning for a domestic issue, right?
True, the police might not take action if it's just me making noise.
Even if they do, it might end with a minor consequence, as you said. But what if I told you the hospital is willing to cooperate?
Huh?
The hospital?
Remember the time Benjamin was tested at the hospital?
They found laxative components in him. We've been going to this current hospital for a long time after exhausting all the local options, haven't we? The doctor thought it was strange that Benjamin regularly gets diarrhea even though there's nothing wrong with him, so they proceeded with the tests and told me everything.
What?
So you lied about the test results being okay?
Surprised that his actions were discovered 2 months ago, Noah's gaze returned to my face. Not knowing how I was going to confront him, his expression was one of shock, but his eyes were slightly anxious. I learned about Benjamin's test results when the doctor took me to the supply room. That's when this plan started. In the supply room, the doctor, turning his back to me as if ignoring me, started organizing the neatly arranged supplies even more.
We're not allowed in here without authorization, and there should be no one else around now, so I can focus on organizing the supplies.
What do you mean?
I want to tell that person to divorce her husband. But, as a doctor, I'm not in a position to say such things. It'd be a big problem if I did.
Excuse me?
There's no one here. So, this is just me talking to myself. I'm focused on organizing supplies, so even if someone was here, I might not notice.
Be careful, though. At first, I didn't understand what the doctor was saying. But without answering my question, he prefaced by saying it was just talking to himself, implying he wanted me to just listen silently.
That boy's father has been found with laxative components in him. He's been getting diarrhea regularly, so maybe he's been given laxatives. I heard she married 7 years ago. But I also heard there were instances of diarrhea even before that, so the father seems suspicious.
While needlessly organizing supplies, the doctor continued with his monologue. However, this information could have been shared without the need for such a secretive setup, even in a consultation room with nurses around, right? But what the doctor wanted to convey started from here.
The father has been taking his son to various hospitals and even taking time off work to bring his son to the hospital. If he's the one giving his son laxatives, why would he go through such lengths to take him to the hospital?
Could it be Munchausen syndrome by proxy?
This condition is often hard for even doctors to notice, and it's common for neither the person themselves nor those around them to realize what's happening.
Munchausen syndrome by proxy?
Munchausen syndrome by proxy is when someone lies about someone else being injured or sick, to draw unnecessary attention or sympathy to themselves. In this case, it could mean the father is harming the child and then wants to appear as a good father to others.
So, he's been giving Benjamin laxatives and then taking him to the hospital himself. Indeed, people say he's a thoughtful and good father.
If it's Munchausen syndrome by proxy, that's tricky. Though views have been changing recently, Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a mental disorder, and even though it's clearly abuse, it could be excused, or the crime could seem less severe. In this case, it's just laxatives once every few months, right? Since it's not as obvious as physical abuse, it might be hard for the police or child welfare services to act. But we need to do something, or the son will continue to suffer.
So, are you saying I have no choice but to talk to Noah directly and persuade him to stop?
Some people might not even realize what they're doing. Even if he stops after being warned, the abuse might start again in another form. Worse, he could deny any wrongdoing and become dangerous,
so it requires careful judgment. Confirming his awareness first is important, but to quickly stop the abuse, separating the father and son might be best. So, I think divorcing and the mother taking the child would be the best course. But saying that as a doctor could pose a problem. It seems like the doctor and I are having a conversation, but this is just us each speaking our thoughts aloud. Whether this method of communication is entirely without issues is debatable. The doctor is navigating a significant gray area here. I showed my gratitude towards the doctor's back and quietly left the room. Do you realize? What you're doing is outright abuse. Abuse is a bit strong. Laxatives are something you can buy anywhere, and people with constipation use them regularly, right? Besides, it's only once every few months, and if anything, it's probably good for cleaning his intestines, making him healthier. Noah is smirking as if to question whether he's supposed to be doing something wrong. As the doctor mentioned, he doesn't seem to fully grasp the severity of his actions. This means even if he stops using laxatives, he might find another way to continue the abuse, potentially in an even less detectable manner. More importantly, I can't keep Benjamin with a father who has been abusing him any longer. I can't stay with you anymore. I'm taking Benjamin and leaving, so I want a divorce. I took out the divorce papers along with the printed camera footage and medical records from the hospital, laying them out on the table. The evidence was placed at the very top. A divorce? For what reason? I haven't had an affair, nor have I been physically abusive. But no abuse has been officially recognized, right? How do you plan to do this? With all this evidence, and the doctor willing to testify, I think you'll be facing arrest soon. And the abuse will be recognized. That makes continuing our marital life difficult, wouldn't you agree? Arrest isn't that easy. You think you're some kind of hero? Noah laughs off my words as usual. But this time, I'm the one on the right. I ask Noah one last thing. Hey, do you have any intention of turning yourself in? Turn myself in? No way. At that moment, my decision to divorce Noah was solidified. Noah has been abusing Benjamin by giving him laxatives. Perhaps it would have been the right choice to consult the police instead of discussing this with my husband. Talking to him first could have allowed him to come up with excuses or even become aggressive. However, aside from the abuse, he was a good husband and father. I couldn't forgive the abuse, but considering he also had this good side, I harbored a hope that he might change. Therefore, I thought if he reflected on his actions and decided to change, we could gradually repair our family relationship without resorting to divorce. That's why I chose to speak with him instead of going to the police. But my hope has vanished. So, I'll be taking Benjamin and leaving. Come back soon. Until the very end, my husband failed to grasp the severity of his actions. He probably thinks he won't really be arrested. After collecting the documents and the yet-to-be-filled divorce papers from the table, I left the living room and headed to Benjamin's room. Inside, Benjamin was doing his homework. However, he seemed to sense something was wrong when he saw me. At 10 years old, he might not understand the details, but he can sense when something serious is happening. I had my son pack everything he'd need for school tomorrow into his backpack, then, holding his hand, we left the house as if fleeing. A week later, Benjamin and I returned home. Benjamin and I came back home. My husband was arrested, leading to his temporary departure from our home. During this period, my son and I returned home, while my husband moved into a cheap apartment to live by himself. Surely, with this situation, he could understand the gravity of what he had done. I went to his room to continue our conversation from a week ago. You were right. Arrested for assault, who would have thought? Well, with all the evidence gathered, it was bound to happen. You must have panicked after being arrested, huh? Instead of talking non-stop like you did with me, you lied through your teeth to the police? It's really pathetic. Why did you do such a thing to Benjamin? When I took custody of Benjamin after divorcing my previous wife, everyone said how hard it must be for a man alone, praising my effort. That made me happy. So, you started all this to get more praise from others. A few times a month of diarrhea could easily be brushed off as a weak stomach. What a shame you came up with. It makes me wonder if your enthusiasm for housework and childcare was just for show. Why did Benjamin's condition get worse recently? Did you increase the laxatives? Yeah, as Benjamin got older, the laxatives weren't as effective, so I gradually increased the dosage. Notice the times when there were about half-a-year gaps? That was when the usual dosage stopped affecting him, so I'd increase it the next time. Recently, it wasn't working much, so I increased it too much, and he ended up with severe diarrhea. It was exactly as the doctor had said, and I was appalled. My husband had indeed been hurting his own child for attention. First-time offense, so I'll get probation, right? I'm going to change. Can't you forgive me? I wanted to hear those words a week ago. Unfortunately, it's too late now. I brought the divorce papers for you to sign. Yeah. I came today to express my intention to divorce, but from here on, I'll leave it to the lawyer. Goodbye. My husband finally showed a serious face and seemed to reflect on his actions. Perhaps the man he is now would no longer abuse our son. However, it's all too late. I left my husband gazing at the divorce papers and returned home. A few days later, I received the filled-out divorce papers from my husband and immediately submitted them. Since Benjamin was my ex-husband's stepchild, I was worried, but I was able to take him without any issues. As for my ex-husband, given it was his first offense and he showed remorse, he received a suspended sentence. And he wasn't sent to prison. Still, I didn't want my ex-husband and son to meet, so I asked him to move far away. This wasn't a demand he had to comply with. But he seemed to think it was better for Benjamin too, and had already been preparing to move before I asked. I know where he moved, but not how he's living. The child support is sent regularly, so he must be working earnestly. But, being serious now, he must regret his current situation and what he's done in the past. Life might have been easier for him if he had remained carefree without considering the gravity of his actions. I don't regret divorcing him. I couldn't forgive a husband who had been abusing our son all this time. However, I'm left with one problem. It is whether or not to tell Benjamin the reason for the divorce. I evaded the truth by claiming it was due to irreconcilable differences, and 2 years have passed. Now that Benjamin is about to enter middle school, I've decided to tell him the truth. Is that why I've been feeling better since Dad left? Those stomach aches were terrible. Just thinking about it makes me really mad. I thought Benjamin would be sad to learn he had been abused, but instead, he felt anger towards my ex-husband. It seems I worried unnecessarily again. While harboring ill feelings towards his father isn't ideal, it's better than him being pained by sadness. Should my son suffer emotionally because of his father, I'm ready to provide all the care he needs. But, seeing how well Benjamin is doing, I doubt such a time will come. If anything, he's the one giving me strength. Maybe thinking I seemed unreliable alone, Benjamin has started helping around the house and now even cooks simple meals. When he made pasta for me for the first time for lunch on a weekend, I almost proposed to him, jokingly, of course. But I can't rely solely on my son. As his mother, I need to be more responsible, so I'm currently preparing for his entrance into middle school.